Welcome guys. In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to create those so-called GeoBoil shapes within Cinema 4D and Octane. On YouTube you'll find a ton of those tutorials already on how to do this, and there's probably a lot of different methods on how to do it. I'm using the volume builder, which is very nice and really easy to use. One part that most of the tutorials are missing, in my opinion, is how to get those bubbles hollow inside. Most of them are just showing how to get the bubbles or whatever shape you use for your effect, but they are all solid instead of like this hollow shape inside the GeoBoiled bubbles, how I would call them. Alright, so let's start. I'll start a new project and I will show the standard layout. Okay, let's get a standard cube, and 200 by 200 by 200 is fine. So this is our basic cube. Let's call it let's keep it cube, I don't care. Now let's get a sphere. We can see it here, it's a little bit big. Maybe 15 is a good size, and very important, let's push the segments to 100. Why this is, I will tell you later. This is very important for the volume builder later on. I usually use icosahedron for the type, so we have, if I use NB to get the lines enabled, you can see you have this nice dense mesh instead of the standard mesh, which is more like don't know. I like the icosahedron, it's easier to work with. So let's keep this. To get the spheres onto our cube, we use a simple cloner object. So select your sphere, press Alt, keep it pressed, and click on the cloner, and now you'll see that the sphere is inside the cloner, and we now have our three spheres in here. Of course, we don't want them to stay in the air floating around. We actually want them on our cube, so we select for the mode object, and for the actual object we put in our cube. Now we have those nice spheres on our cube. Well, done. There you go. No, actually not. So there's a little bit more to do. First of all, let's select our cloner and add a MoGraph random effector. When you have the cloner selected in your menu and now apply the random effector, it will automatically be applied to the cloner. So you can see now in the cloner effectors tab that the random effector is there, and you can see the spheres floating around because by default the random effector applies on the position. This I don't want. I actually want it to be applied on the scale. So select scale, uniform scale, absolute scale, and let's check 1. Yeah, not too bad. Maybe 1.3. Yeah, so we have those different sized spheres outside on our cube. We could play in the cloner a little bit with the amount and the seed, so we have different positions. Nah, I don't like that. How about 25? And how about this? So we have a lot of intersections actually in our spheres, which is not that bad, but I want to keep them a little bit more separated, so I will also apply a push apart effector. So again, select the cloner, MoGraph effectors, and then we take push apart. What this does is basically push apart, as the name says, all our clone spheres from the middle. This is a little bit too much, so we are actually not on our cube anymore. So let's maybe reduce this to a radius of 10. Yeah, so now you can see I can enable it and disable it. So the intersections is getting much smaller, and I think this works actually pretty well for our GeoBoil effect. As you can see, it already almost looks like the actual effect. But now comes the most important part, in my opinion. And by this, let's first rename this to Big Bubbles. And now take a copy of this cloner, call it Small Bubbles. I think I missed a B here. Let's be accurate. And so now we have basically the same amount of bubbles and the same position. I can disable this and you can see they are still there. So what I'm now gonna do is I change the radius of my sphere that is cloned in my cloner object here to maybe 13.5. And you can't see it right now, but if I change the display maybe to lines and then isoparams, you can now see that we have like this hull for our bubbles. If I disable the big bubbles, you can probably see it better. So now the small sphere is inside of the big sphere and basically creating this kind of hull effect. Let's get back to our wireframe. All right, so next thing that we're gonna do is probably we should take a backup of those, because now we are going into destructive mode, and with a backup of those we can easily reproduce this. So let's just create a group, put the bubbles in there. Oh, I messed something up. Try it again. Put my bubbles in there, call it backup, disable it, and now copy those again. All right, next step that we're gonna do is create a volume builder. Basically what it does, it like combines the shapes and geometry that we put into this volume builder, and then creates like a uniform thing out of it, a uniform object. So first put in my cube, then the big bubbles, and then the small bubbles. And as you can see, now we have this blocky kind of thing what we just built before, but it's very low density, and that's because of the voxel size in the volume builder. To fix this, we just decrease the size of the voxels maybe to 2. Let's go to 1. And there we go. Let me check something. Yeah, one thing we also would like to do probably, so we don't have those sharp edges here on our cube, let's get some fillets on there as well. Maybe let's choose 0.5, and a subdivision of 5 should be fine as well. And now it's much nicer edges on our cube. Okay, and now is the important part for our volume builder, is that for the small bubbles, instead of the union mode, which would just make a big blob out of our voxels, we select subtract, which will basically subtract the small bubbles from the inside of our big bubbles, creating basically this hull or hollow effect. We can't see this right now, but believe me, it's gonna be there. Maybe the voxel size down to 0.9. Yeah, and so now we have this very nice mesh, and now you can also see why it's important to select the 100 segments for our spheres. Let me quickly change this for the big bubbles and go to maybe 32 segments. Now you can see this detail like almost golf ball structure of the icosahedron in my sphere, and that would be basically reflected in my volume builder and later in the volume measure. And so with the 100 segments, we have a nicer outside hull for our spheres. We could probably do this with like a smaller voxel size for our volume builder as well, but I think the segments in the sphere is much easier and much quicker to be done. Also, it's less voxels in or faces polygons in the end. Okay, next step, we need to create a volume measure. So let's select our volume builder, press go to our volume, keep the Alt key pressed and select the volume measure. And now the volume builder that we just created is inside our measure and creating this nice geometry. And yeah, we are almost done. You can see this is a very interesting, nice looking geometry. I will, for the ease of use, just select everything, connect objects and delete, so I only have one object, and with that we can work now. I will switch to my Octane view now. Select my preset here. You can see basically nothing because it's black, so let's create daylight for the ease of use. Maybe rotate this a bit. This always looks nice. And now, so we can actually see this hull effect of my GeoBoil bubbles. Let's create a specular material and maybe put the index to a glassy material, which is 1.517, and apply it to our object. And now we should be able to see, yes, very nice. That we, oh, it does not rotate. What's going on here? There we go. Now we can see that we have this very nice hollow bubble effect on our GeoBoils. And maybe now we should create a quick vertex map so we can actually have this like two different colors, like the bubbles are transparent and the actual cube is kind of opaque. Therefore, we gonna make a Phong selection. So let's change in the polygon mode, and then press Shift-C to get my search, and I already like used this before. If you put in Phong, you will find the Phong brick selection, or you could also press UN. And with this, we are now able to select our different faces of our cube, basically by just this. Oh, this did not work. Oh yeah. So first we have to change our Phong angle, because now it's selecting our bubbles as well, which we don't want. So maybe 4 would work fine. Yeah, not too bad. Maybe even smaller, 3. So this is a little bit, you have to try around with this a little. Maybe even, let's try 1. Yeah, 1 should be fine. And now keep your Shift key pressed and select the different faces of our cube. This one as well, I think. We are good now. So as you can see, now we have a very nice selection of all our faces and not the spheres. So let's save the selection. This is actually an optional step because we don't really need it if we follow the steps like how I show you in the next steps, but it will make things easier if we like do a wrong click or something. So let's set the selection. Now we have this selection saved here in this little polygon selection. And now what we're going to do is create a vertex map. So select, set vertex weight, and put it on 0. And this will create this vertex map on our object. If I double click on it, you can see everything is red, which basically means nothing is selected in this vertex map. But now comes the magic of the selection that we just did before. When we change our mode to add and then apply selected, we can see that we now have this very nice vertex map of the faces that we just selected before. What you can also see is that the edges on those selections are very sharp and very like blocky, which we probably don't want, but there's also an easy way to fix this by changing the mode to smooth and then select apply all. You can actually do this a couple of times to even smooth it out a lot. Yeah, I think this is fine. And now we have a very nice vertex map of our bubbles, or actually the faces of our cube without the bubbles. And now we can basically create, for example, let's create a mixed material. But you can do this with any other, I'm using Octane here, but you can use any other render as well, as long as you can apply vertex maps on the actual material. Let me delete the transparent material and apply my mixed material to my volume here. And now let's delete this. Now let's change into the node editor, select our material here, and we don't want to use the flow texture for our for the amount, but actually we want the vertex map for the amount. For the vertex map, we select the vertex map that has just been created. And now let's create an Octane material and another Octane material. The first one we'll, let's maybe do a glossy material. How about we organize this a little bit better so we have a lot more space. Let's get an RGB spectrum, put it into the diffuse channel, put it into the transmission, and how about a dark grayish, maybe 25, yeah, and then put this into the material 1, put this into material 2, and you can already see the actual effect that we are creating here. And I don't want this to be 100% specular, because no object in the world is actual 100% specular. And let's put the roughness maybe to 0.1, maybe 0.2. And now let's work on our second material, which we're going to make a specular material. I'm going to change to GGX for this. And I also want to put in maybe a greenish color, light greenish lime color. Very nice. And I also want to put in a scatter material in the medium channel. Let's also, oh come on, it does not want to do this, I don't care. Let's take the same RGB spectrum, put it into the absorption and the scattering, and now we can already see that the subsurface scattering is taking part, and we're gonna change the density to maybe 10. We could even go for 5 or even 3. Very nice. I don't like this green. Maybe a bluish color instead. Yeah, that is very nice. And there we go. Now we have this very nice GeoBoil effect on our cube, and especially nice, as you can see, is this hollow effect. In the actual bubbles, you can see there's like an inside wall and an outside wall, which looks very nice. And even with the intersections that we have, it looks very realistic, as if there was really something boiling on the outside of our cube, and then actually it kind of exploded and got glossy and whatever. All right, that's basically it. I hope you liked this tutorial. It's actually my first tutorial that I ever made. Let me know if you like it. Give me a thumbs up if you like it, and let me know if there's something I could do better, or if, yeah, I don't know. Hope you like this. Enjoy, try to replicate this effect, and let me show me your results if you want to show me if this helped you as well. All right, have a good day and see you soon.